Hi friend. Today's video is going to be a little bit different from what I normally post. I do always have notes and sort of a script for my videos just like I do today, but normally it's a lot more planned out. And today that's just not the case. I'm kind of going off the cuff. I have some bullet points to go off of here. My 24th birthday is tomorrow, so I'm filming this the day before my birthday, but you're probably watching this on my birthday. And birthdays can be a funny time. There can be a lot of emotions that come up, lots of happiness and excitement, and of course celebrating with people that you love is really fun. But then also I feel like birthdays are a time of a lot of reflection and kind of looking back on your life and thinking, what have I learned and what do I want my life to look like moving forward? And in my short life so far, I feel like there are things that I've learned in these last several years, or just in my entire life in general, that I wanted to share in today's video. And so that is why the title is 24 Lessons in 24 Years. I just want to talk about some things that I think are really important, and hopefully this resonates with somebody out there. Let me get my water. I need to be hydrated, it's a long list. When I sat down to make this list, the first thing that popped into my mind, the first lesson, if you will, is that everything passes. I know that when I was a little bit younger, even now sometimes this happens, but definitely as a dramatic teenager, whenever something horrible would happen or I would experience just something difficult in life, it can feel like that emotion or that circumstance is just completely engulfing you and that it's going to control your life forever. The reality though is that no matter how strong your feelings are, whether it's anger or despair or hurt, you've been really wronged or just something terrible has happened, no matter how strong that feeling is, eventually that feeling and that situation will pass and you'll look back on it with a different perspective. There's so many lessons that can come from moments like that, but I think it's so important to, in that moment, allow yourself to experience that emotion fully. Don't suppress it and don't act like it's not there. Let yourself feel that emotion completely, but don't allow yourself to be controlled by it, and don't allow yourself to think that this is gonna impact your whole life dramatically, because everything passes, whether it's good or bad. And I think that's a really wonderful thing, and it's something that I remind myself of all the time when I'm going through something a little bit hard, is that everything that I've gone through before that was hard has passed, and so this too will pass. The second lesson, and this is something that is definitely, I mean, all of these are very personal to my life, of course, but this one especially, and it is that people are not projects, and it's not your job to change or fix them. Even if you think you have the best intentions where you're trying to bring somebody to a better place, or you're kind of looking at them and thinking, well, you could do this better, you could do that better, you are going down the wrong path here, you need to go and do that. You don't feel like you are fully accepted and loved and cared for as you are. You feel like someone is just trying to bring you up to where they think you're supposed to be. And I just think that that's not fair. There's a difference. I think there's definitely a time and a place for encouraging growth and allowing people to become a better version of themselves because you are supporting and encouraging them. But that's different than taking a person and wanting to change them completely, if that makes sense. Decide whether or not you want this person in your life rather than accepting them into your life and then trying to change them afterwards. It's not fair to push your ideals and your opinions of what someone's life should look like on somebody else unwillingly. And the fact of the matter is, people don't change unless they really want to change. So don't do that to people. Be kind, be compassionate, be supportive and encouraging, but people aren't projects. It's not your job to fix them. The third lesson that I've learned in 24 years is that your actions don't just affect you. As important as it is to honor your intuition and make big decisions that align with what you want to do, even though not everybody might agree with it, I think it's also important to take into consideration that everything you do, especially, I'm not talking about little decisions here and there, but major life decisions, they deeply affect the people that are closest to you. It's not just all about you. I think that's a big part of growing up, is learning that the world does not center around you. Everything that you do has a domino effect on those closest to you, and it's not fair to recklessly make decisions without taking into consideration how that affects the people around you. The fourth lesson is that sometimes it's just better to miss out. I remember as a younger person having really strong feelings of FOMO if I wasn't allowed to go somewhere or I wasn't invited to go somewhere, and I just felt this intense feeling of like being left out and just missing out, and I hated it. It's better to miss out on certain things than to be around people that you don't feel like you can be your best self with. I'm sure this is somewhat of a universal experience. There are people that, you know, you hang out with them and you just feel kind of bad about yourself. You feel drained, you don't feel respected, you don't feel like they even want you there. And trust me, it's so much better to miss out and to spend your time and energy with the people that actually want to be around you and want to spend time with you, rather than the people that don't want you at that event or, you know, hanging out with them in the first place. Lesson number 5 is a big one. This is something I feel so strongly about, and it is that relationships are not 50-50. They are 100-100. I strongly disagree with the fact that relationships are just about give and take, or about tallying up your good deeds or your good actions and then comparing them to your spouse's or your friends' good deeds and actions. Like, oh, I did this for you, and then you're watching out like, what are they gonna do for me? No, that is such a wrong way of looking at things. In healthy relationships, and sometimes, you know, every relationship you have conflict, there's things you need to work through, but a relationship is about consistently serving your spouse or your friend or whoever it is that you're in relationship with, serving them and thinking about their needs. And if you are in a healthy relationship, then they will feel compelled to do the same for you because they love you. I looked back in my notes real quick, and I did say here that relationships are about sacrificially and lovingly serving that person consistently without constantly tallying up your good deeds and watching for them to do the same. I wanted to read that real quick because of the word sacrificially. You're not just thinking about what am I doing in relationship to what they're doing. You are sacrificing maybe sometimes your own comfort or your own vanity, or I don't know, just your own, you know, what you want to do, coming back to like you're not the center of the universe kind of thing. And you are thinking about what their needs are. I think that's what healthy relationships are all about. And then of course, if you do feel neglected or there is conflict, then that needs to be worked through. And sometimes you realize that this is not the person for you and you need to leave. But I think overall, generally in healthy relationships, it should be 100-100. Lesson number 6 is something that I titled Don't Tell, Show. And this can apply in various different ways. The main two that I was thinking about when writing about this is that sometimes there are moments where you have a vision and a purpose and an idea, a dream that you are excited about and working towards, maybe something that you really feel called to do. And sometimes when you tell somebody about that before you start doing it, they can start to discourage you. They can start to make you feel like maybe you wouldn't be good at this, or maybe this is too big of a risk or too big of a leap. And are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you're capable of this? And then you get all of this outside noise and you feel like you're being distanced from your purpose. In those situations, I think it's so much better to truly, as cliche and cheesy as it sounds, listen to your heart in those situations. And sometimes it's just better to keep things to yourself. If you feel called to do it, but don't feel like you need to constantly tell people what you're up to. Things don't always need to be shared. Don't tell, show. This is also the case in relationships. Rather than telling somebody all the time how much you love them, how much you care about them, how much they mean to you, rather than constantly saying that over and over again, show that with your actions, show that with the things that you do for them or the way that you care for them. Number 7, for all of my recovering people pleasers like myself, not everybody's going to like you, and that's okay. For the longest time, I think I really tried to mold and change my demeanor or my personality depending on who I was around. And the kicker is that even when you do that, not everybody's gonna like you anyway, so you might as well just be yourself and allow your personality to attract the type of people that you want to be around. Lesson number 8, this is a good one. This one is titled Discipline is Hot. And I think this is very important, especially for people that struggle with procrastination like I do. And growing up, I really had to face the fact that I actually have a lot of insecurities. And a major reason as to why I struggle with insecurities because I'm not disciplined, I don't keep the promises that I make to myself, and therefore I lose faith and confidence in my abilities. I wrote here that you cannot become a slave to your feelings. It can be so hard to persevere and really stick with something when you just don't feel like it. But letting go of that and letting go of the fact that you are always going to be comfortable and always going to be happy is really where growth begins. Getting out of your comfort zone, doing things that completely freak you out and scare you, and sticking with that discipline anyways is really where you are going to grow your confidence. That's where true confidence comes from, by the way. There are so many things, I think, online, and they're beneficial in their own way, you know, self-affirmations, things like that. But that is nothing without the proof in your life to show that you can be disciplined, that you are capable of reaching your goals, and that your life matters to you, that you don't just want to kind of float with the current like a dead fish. You know, you want to be a live fish. You want to be looking and chasing what it is that is important to you. If you are the one that's been holding yourself back, then you are also the one that can get yourself back on track and bring yourself to have the life that you really want. The 9th lesson is that you need to get away from energy vampires. These are people that are constantly becoming victims to their circumstances. Oftentimes energy vampires not only complain about their life or, you know, talk about negative things going on with them, but they are also often bad listeners. They don't really ask you about yourself, and when you do talk about yourself, they might belittle your interests or belittle your aspirations or make you feel stupid. You are not doing yourself a favor being around people like that. You need to get around people that are encouraging and uplifting and inspiring, because when you have a circle of friends and family, and when you have a spouse like that that's encouraging and inspiring, you are really going to be able to realize your full potential, and you are going to be able to help that other person reach their full potential because you're both hyping each other up and inspiring each other. This doesn't mean that there isn't a time and a place for a good rant. I am definitely a fan of just, you know, getting things off my chest. Doing this with a friend or your spouse can be so awesome. Sometimes you need some therapeutic complaining. 1000%. There's definitely a time and a place for that. But when you are constantly in a low place and pulling other people down there with you, it's time to reconsider. Lesson number 10 is that romanticizing your life will change your life. My rose-colored glasses sentiment has helped me get through difficult things in life while still, at least a little bit, remaining positive and optimistic. I used to do this thing in high school. I had a little notebook and I would write things in there called silver linings. That's what I called it. And I would have just a bullet list of the tiniest little things throughout my day that brought me joy. So maybe I had like a really good granola bar during art class. Maybe I walked outside and stepped on a crunchy leaf. It could be as small and as simple as that. And for some reason, doing that and keeping an account of all of the things that made me excited and happy in my life was such a game changer for me. And I don't do that so much on paper anymore, but I'm always doing it in my head. And I think that that is something that has really changed my life and really allowed me to get excited about it, even if I'm not doing anything majorly exciting that day. Even if it is just a mundane day, I'm able to get excited about all of the little things that I have to be grateful for. Lesson number 11 is that the journey never ends. The journey of self-improvement and the journey of becoming an even better version of yourself never, ever, ever ends. That keeps going throughout your entire life. You are never going to have all the answers. You are never going to be a perfect person. You are never going to live life in exactly the way that, you know, maybe you picture in a perfect world, and that's okay. That's actually the beauty of living life, is that you make mistakes and then you get up. You make mistakes, you learn something, and then you do better in the next situation. We go through highs and lows, ups and downs, and recognizing that the journey is just, it's never gonna end. That's a beautiful thing. Lesson number 12 is to speak up and be an advocate for yourself. This can be really hard for people that are timid, which is definitely something that I resonate with. It can be really hard for me to stand up for myself if I'm feeling disrespected or wronged. Whether it's in social situations where you're being made fun of, or maybe it's at work or at school where your perspective is being ignored, or in a relationship with a person where you feel like you're being disrespected, I highly encourage you to stand up for yourself. The more you don't stand up for yourself, the more you are teaching people how they are allowed to treat you and what they can get away with. Some people are just, it's so uncool, you know, they will push the boundary of like, how far can I push you today? How mean can I be today? And at what point will you break? They might not do that consciously, they might not be setting out to do that, but subconsciously that is what they're doing. So by taking a stance, even though it feels uncomfortable, and saying, hey, that's not gonna fly with me, or one of my favorites, you can't speak to me that way, is so powerful. And it shows people that they just can't get away with speaking to you or treating you a certain way. Lesson number 13, do the things that scare you. Living life in your comfort zone all the time is going to inhibit growth. It's going to keep you from discovering things that you might be really good at. It's going to keep you from really exciting experiences. So rather than living in comfort all the time, push yourself a little bit outside of that boundary and see what happens. If you are a teenager in middle or high school, I also really encourage you to push yourself outside of your comfort zone in terms of social situations. Of course, this is relevant for adults too, absolutely. But speaking from personal experience, there were a lot of things that I maybe didn't go to or didn't participate in because I felt uncomfortable or I felt like I was gonna be really awkward. Do it scared. Do it while being awkward. Nothing is gonna happen to you if you feel a little bit awkward for a little bit. Go out and try it one time. I don't think you'll regret it. Lesson number 14 is do not become a victim of your limiting beliefs. We touched on this briefly in some of my other points, but a lot of people have a story that they tell themselves. I know this is definitely true for me, of this is what I'm good at and this is what I'm bad at, and we just box ourselves in. Because of these limits that we set on ourselves, because of these limits that we set on our capabilities, there might be things out there for us that we could be really good at, or that might bring a lot of value to us that we never pursue because we feel like we're just not that kind of person. I wrote it in a really great way in my notes here. I said, set yourself free from these stories and accept the reality that you can achieve anything and you can become the best and highest version of yourself if you allow yourself to recognize that as a possibility. Lesson number 15, again, another one that I feel so strongly about, and that is that being self-deprecating is so lame. Drop that. If you are still doing that as an adult, please, I'm begging you, because being around people like that, again, is exhausting to be around someone that does that, and doing that yourself eventually gets really old. I know, because I did it. I did the self-deprecating thing and it sucks. I think a lot of the times when people are self-deprecating, they know that they have a lot of good traits, but they just reject that almost as like a way to fish for more compliments or fish for more reassurance. That can be a hard reality to accept. Maybe it's not because you're insecure. Maybe it's because you want people to reassure and compliment you more. And that is something that you really need to unpack. You are a beautiful person. You have so much to offer to the world. You have so many skills and talents. When people compliment you, say thank you. And when you stop doing that, you are able to actually expand your skills and expand your abilities, because you are not constantly pushing yourself into that box of, oh, I suck, oh, my life sucks, I'm so ugly. Like, stop it. You are doing yourself a huge disservice. Number 16 is that someone else's beauty is not the absence of your own. There is room for everyone to succeed. There is room for everyone to do well for themselves. And just because someone else is doing well doesn't mean that that somehow inhibits your ability to do well. Just because someone else is really, really beautiful doesn't mean that your beauty is diminished. You are not meant to be her. You are not meant to be him. You are meant to be you, and you are beautiful in your own way, even if your beauty doesn't look just like someone else's. Number 17 is you need to set healthy boundaries. I learned this a lot with work. Sometimes it can be really easy to allow people to constantly be asking things of you, and you are always happy to oblige. You do not have a work-life boundary. You do not have any sort of balance. You are just constantly giving people what they want. I encourage you to, instead of doing that, think about what your needs are so that you can give from a full cup. If you are constantly catering to everyone's needs and neglecting your own, you are trying to pour into them from an empty cup. And sometimes people don't know. They don't know where your boundary is. They don't know that you're tired. They don't know that you have a lot on your plate. So you have to vocalize that. Coming back to speaking up for yourself, you have to vocalize your boundaries, and from there people can make a choice whether or not they will respect those boundaries or not. If they do, awesome, great, fantastic, and if they don't, it might be time to drop that relationship, whether it's in work or your personal life. Number 18 is to welcome all experiences, even the bad ones. Sometimes we tend to view failure as something really bad, as a waste of time, but that is not true. Every single experience, whether positive or negative, is there to teach you something. So no matter what it is, good or bad, welcome that experience and try to ask yourself, what can I learn from this to take into my future? Number 19 is to stop believing the sunk cost fallacy. This can be major for young adults, especially people in their 20s that are thinking about a career shift, or maybe that are holding on to friendships or relationships from their teen years that might not be right for them anymore. Don't allow yourself to believe that just because you spent this much time on this person or on this career path or just on this thing, whatever it is, that you have to keep pursuing it even if you've determined that this is not right for you. This is not the right person for you. This is not the right career for you. Even if you've spent multiple years on this, it's not wasted time, because that experience, again, going back to welcoming all experiences, that experience was there to teach you something. And if you have determined that it is no longer right for you and you are being called towards something else, honor that within yourself. Don't believe the sunk cost fallacy. Number 20 is that good things really do take time. In the era of instant gratification and constant rewards and dopamine, it can be hard to stick with something when the rewards just aren't coming. But I will be the first to say, especially after spending a long year on YouTube making content and not seeing any fruits of my labor, sticking with something is going to eventually produce the fruit that you're looking for. It's going to bring those rewards, but you have to stick with it long enough to see that happen. Number 21 is that love is a choice. This can be hard to understand as a young person when you are feeling a lot of butterflies and a lot of excitement associated with a new relationship. And even though that part of life is so much fun and so fantastic, definitely revel in it, enjoy it. But you also have to recognize that love grows and changes and looks different at different stages in your relationship. In marriage, sometimes you go through really tough things. Sometimes you don't get along. Sometimes there's things that come up, it's life. And waking up every single day and making a choice that even if I'm upset with you or even if we're going through something, I'm going to choose to love you anyway is so powerful. And actually, I've noticed that as much fun as the beginning stages are, absolutely, I'm not trying to take away from that, but as your love grows into a more mature love, you feel safe, you feel comfortable, you feel secure, you feel protected. And that is just as exciting, if not even more exciting than those butterflies and that obsession and infatuation in the beginning. Love is a choice. You have to choose to want to make it work with another person, because the reality is that nobody is perfect. You are going to go through hard times, but it's how you make it through those hard times that counts. Lesson number 22 is that you are not a second choice. This applies to both men and women. It applies in romantic relationships as well as platonic relationships. You should not feel like you are a second choice, or somebody else is settling for you, or you are their wait and see option. Absolutely not. The right person out there, whether it's a friend or a romantic partner, will want to be with you, will want to choose you, will just be so overjoyed that they get to be with you that you will never feel like you're on the back burner or they're just waiting for someone else that's better to come along. What I wrote here is you deserve to be an absolute yes and do not settle for anything less. We're even rhyming here. Lesson number 23 is to stop taking things personally. It can be hard to recognize that a lot of the times other people's emotions have nothing to do with us. I learned this once and for all when I was working as a cashier at a deli at my local airport. I was 18, it was my first job, and there was this guy that came in on one of my shifts and he was just livid. It's an airport, so people have all kinds of different emotions, but he is cussing at me, he is angry about his order, it took too long or something. He was being so mean, so cruel. Again, I'm 18 years old, this is a grown man. I'm so completely floored and taken aback by his behavior. Then he left. And after he left, a little bit of time had passed and he came back during that same shift and he apologized to me. He said, "Hey, I'm so sorry for speaking to you that way. I have just had a really hard day. There are a lot of difficult things that came up today and I took it out on you." And in that moment, I realized a lot of the times, people's reactions, people's emotions, it doesn't have anything to do with you. They are dealing with something internally. They might be going through a battle, a really hard time in life, and you are just the first person out there in the world that they take it out on. So don't take things personally. It's really not about you 99% of the time. People are going through their own thing. Just be as kind and compassionate as possible, because you never know what someone is going through. And lesson number 24, this one feels really special because of the fact that, I'm in my 20s. Lesson number 24 is that your 20s are for learning, experimenting, and growing. A lot of people think that by a certain age, in your early to mid 20s, you need to have things figured out. You need to, be married ideally, or you need to have your career on lock. You need to have a house, or I don't know. There's a lot of different things. You need to have kids. There's a lot of different societal expectations that people set on people in their 20s. But I'm here to tell you, even though I have some of those things and there are some of those things that I don't have. And no matter where you're at, your 20s is a beautiful time for experimentation. It's for trying out 100 different things and failing at 90 of them. This is a time for exploration. This is a time for trying new things out. This is a time to invest in yourself, invest in your future. Think about the things that you enjoy, try all of them, and see what ultimately you want to stick with. Don't take yourself too seriously during this stage in life. I wrote here that this is the time to explore and figure out your strengths and purpose. This is the time to make memories and do the things you're scared of. It's the time to focus on self-improvement. It's the time to be bold and courageous and unapologetically yourself. Enjoy it, both the bad and the good, and allow yourself the space to bloom and learn along the way. Let me know in the comments whether you are younger than me or older than me or my same age, which of these lessons resonated with you, and what are some lessons that you've learned in your life that maybe I didn't touch on. Definitely leave those in the comments below. I would love to have a conversation with you in the comments, because I think that the best ideas and the best thoughts are born in conversation. So please leave a comment and let me know what you think. I hope that you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week for a brand new video. Bye!